Donald Trump seeks revenge against not only just individuals,
that gave us Trump in the first place.
When George Conway took to the airwaves last Tuesday, nobody expected the bloodbath that would follow. The legal mastermind, yes, the same George Conway who's married to Trump's former right-hand woman, Kellyanne, delivered what insiders are calling the most surgical takedown of Donald Trump ever televised. And darlings, we have all the juicy details. Let's set the scene, shall we? The Conways weren't just any Washington power couple. They were the contradiction that had the Capitol buzzing for years. Kellyanne, with her blonde ambition and unwavering loyalty to Trump, stood by her man through alternative facts and countless scandals. Meanwhile, husband George, an accomplished attorney with conservative credentials longer than Trump's tie, transformed into the ex-president's most ruthless critic. Talk about awkward Thanksgiving dinners. It's the most fascinating marital dynamic I've ever witnessed in politics, whispers a former White House staffer who requested anonymity. Imagine going home to someone who spends their days dismantling everything you've built. The tension must have been absolutely electric. Sources close to the couple claim their household essentially operated as two separate camps, Team Kellyanne and Team George, with battle lines drawn through their multi-million-dollar D.C. mansion. Their marriage became America's favorite political soap opera, leaving everyone wondering, how could two people sharing a bed be on such opposite sides of history? When George Conway appeared on national television last week, Trump's inner circle reportedly went into DEFCON 1 panic mode. They knew Conway wasn't just another talking head. He was the insider who got away, the brilliant legal mind who was once offered a top Justice Department position in Trump's administration before becoming his most formidable critic. Conway knows where all the bodies are buried, a former Trump campaign official told this reporter. He's married to the woman who helped engineer Trump's rise. He hears things, he knows things, and most terrifying for Trump, he's smart enough to connect all the dots. The interview started innocently enough. Conway, impeccably dressed in a Navy suit that screamed old money Washington, settled into his chair with the comfortable ease of a man who knows exactly what he's about to do. No theatrics, no shouting, just the calm demeanor of an executioner who takes pride in his work. And then, my darlings, the slaughter began. Trump is basically a Matryoshka doll of lies, Conway said, his voice eerily calm. He'll lie, then lie about lying, then lie about lying about lying. It's lies all the way down. Viewers watched in stunned silence as Conway methodically deconstructed not just Trump's presidency, but his entire persona. The studio grew so quiet you could hear producers gasping off camera. This wasn't just another anti-Trump rant. It was the political equivalent of a mob hit, executed in broad daylight with millions watching. He doesn't think there's anybody else in the world other than him, Conway continued, twisting the knife with surgical precision. In his universe, he is the only person that matters. We don't really exist, we are just objects of his view. What makes the Conway saga so deliciously scandalous isn't just George's takedown, it's the marriage behind it. How did the man married to Trump's most loyal defender become his most eloquent critic? According to close friends, the Conway marriage has always been complicated. Both George and Kellyanne are brilliant, ambitious, and hardwired for political combat. Before Trump, they were aligned, conservative legal eagles soaring through Washington's power corridors together. They were the perfect Republican power couple, says a longtime friend of the family. Kellyanne was this polling genius who could spin anything, and George was the intellectual heavyweight who gave their positions gravitas. They complemented each other perfectly. Then came Trump, the human wrecking ball, who didn't just divide America, he divided the Conway bedroom. When Kellyanne joined Trump's campaign in 2016, George initially supported her career move. Friends say he even voted for Trump, believing the campaign was just another political job for his wife. But as Trump's presidency unfolded, George Conway, a constitutional conservative to his core, watched in horror as norms crumbled and scandals multiplied. George didn't abandon conservatism, he believes Trump did, explains a former colleague from Conway's law firm days. For George, Trump represents everything conservatism shouldn't be: chaotic, unprincipled, and borderline authoritarian. The breaking point came during the Russia investigation. As a distinguished attorney, Conway couldn't stomach what he saw as blatant obstruction of justice. While Kellyanne defended Trump on television, George took to Twitter, becoming the unexpected resistance hero that liberal America never knew it needed. For Trump, Conway's criticism stings worse than any other critic's barbs. It's personal, it's familial, it's a betrayal he can't process. Trump sees the world in very simple terms. You're either loyal or you're an enemy, explains a former White House communications staffer. But George Conway defies that binary. He's the husband of one of Trump's most trusted advisors. In Trump's world, that should make him family. And family doesn't stab you in the back on national television. What really sets Trump's teeth on edge? Conway's clinical approach. While most critics scream and rant, Conway dissects Trump's behavior with the detached precision of a psychiatrist examining a case study. You don't want to diagnose him, but I think if you look at the diagnostic criteria for narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder, he fits every single one of them, Conway said during his bombshell interview. It's like the criteria were made to describe him. Insiders say Trump was apoplectic watching Conway's interview, throwing a remote control at his television and demanding that aides prepare a response. His rage only intensified when Conway calmly explained Trump's legal vulnerabilities in language so clear that even non-lawyers could understand the peril the former president faces. He's going to jail if he does not win the presidency, Conway stated flatly. And he can see that now, and that's why he's doubling down on unreality. If attacking Trump on television wasn't enough, Conway co-founded the Lincoln Project, a political action committee designed specifically to torment Trump with advertisements that struck at his most sensitive insecurities. The Lincoln Project wasn't just opposition, it was psychological warfare, custom-built by Republicans who knew exactly which buttons to push. Their slick, devastating ads compared Trump unfavorably to real conservative icons, highlighted his failures, and most devastatingly, mocked his insecurities about everything from crowd sizes to his handling of the pandemic. The Lincoln Project is Conway's revenge masterpiece, says a Republican strategist familiar with the organization. These aren't just political ads. They're designed to get inside Trump's head, to make him spiral, to provoke the self-destructive behavior that ultimately hurts him politically. One particularly effective Lincoln Project ad described Trump as impotent, a deliberate double entendre that sources say sent Trump into a days-long rage and struggling to walk down a ramp, directly attacking the strongman image Trump worked so hard to project. George knows that Trump is obsessed with appearance and strength, the strategist continues. So he and the Lincoln Project target precisely those vulnerabilities. It's like watching someone systematically dismantle a psychological Jenga tower. Perhaps most fascinating about the Conway saga is how it played out inside the White House itself. While George was publicly torching Trump, Kellyanne remained one of the president's fiercest defenders. It was the most awkward open secret in the West Wing, confides a former Trump administration official. Everyone knew what George was saying, but nobody dared mention it to Kellyanne. It was like this bizarre parallel universe where we all pretended her husband wasn't trying to destroy her boss. Staffers report that Trump would occasionally bring up George's criticisms directly to Kellyanne, putting her in the impossible position of defending both her husband and her boss. Trump would wave his phone in her face with George's latest tweet and say, "Can you believe what your husband just said about me?" the official recalls. Kellyanne would just smile tightly and pivot the conversation. Her ability to compartmentalize was honestly terrifying. The strain eventually took its toll. In August 2020, Kellyanne announced she was leaving the White House to focus on her family. Around the same time, George stepped back from the Lincoln Project and reduced his public criticism of Trump. Sources close to the couple insist the simultaneous retreats weren't coincidental, but a last-ditch effort to save their marriage and protect their children, particularly daughter Claudia, who had become a social media sensation for her own anti-Trump content. They were watching their family implode in public, says a friend of the couple. Whatever their political differences, they both love their children. They realized that continuing on this path would destroy everything. What makes Conway's criticisms particularly devastating is his apparent understanding of Trump's psychology. While most Trump critics focus on policy or behavior, Conway zeroes in on the psychological underpinnings that drive the former president. He's a narcissistic sociopath, Conway said matter-of-factly during his viral interview. That's the thing everyone has to get used to. It's the reason why you cannot normalize him. According to mental health professionals who've watched Conway's commentary, his descriptions of Trump's behavior align with textbook definitions of certain personality disorders. Conway speaks about Trump's psychology with remarkable precision, notes Dr. Elizabeth Harrington, a clinical psychologist who studies political behavior. And who hasn't treated Trump, describes classic narcissistic patterns: the inability to process criticism, the lack of empathy, the transactional view of relationships. It's like he's reading from a diagnostic manual. What's particularly striking is Conway's insistence that Trump's behavior isn't strategic but compulsive. "I think everybody overthinks this guy," Conway explained. "There's no strategy, there's no thought." This framing is devastatingly effective because it undermines Trump's carefully crafted image as a chess player thinking several moves ahead. Instead, Conway portrays him as a reactive, impulsive figure, incapable of the strategic thinking required for effective leadership. What gives Conway's criticisms such sting is his impeccable conservative credentials. This isn't some liberal pundit taking pot shots. It's a lifelong Republican with a resume that would make any conservative swoon. Before becoming Trump's nemesis, Conway was the legal eagle who argued and won Morrison v's National Australia Bank before the Supreme Court in 2010. He was considered for high-ranking positions in Trump's own Justice Department. His conservative bona fides are beyond question. George Conway is the critic Trump can't dismiss, explains a Republican media consultant. He can't call him a Democrat or a never-Trumper because George was literally offered a job in his administration. He can't question his intelligence because George is objectively brilliant. All Trump can do is attack him personally, which just makes Trump look petty. This credibility makes Conway particularly dangerous when he discusses Trump's legal troubles. When Conway predicts Trump could face jail time, it carries weight that similar claims from Democratic opponents simply don't have. "He's going to jail if he does not win the presidency," Conway stated bluntly in his interview. Coming from one of America's top attorneys, this isn't just punditry, it's an expert legal assessment that sends shivers through Trump's inner circle. The million-dollar question that has Washington gossips buzzing: how did the Conway's marriage survive this political firestorm? And did it really survive, or are appearances deceiving? Sources close to the couple paint a complicated picture. While the Conways announced they were stepping back from politics to focus on family, insiders suggest the reality was messier. Their marriage became a casualty of the Trump era, claims a family friend. They still care for each other deeply, but the political divide created wounds that haven't fully healed. Others suggest the Conways have reached a détente rather than reconciliation. They've agreed to disagree and focus on being parents, says another source. They are cordial and respectful, but the passion of their early years has been replaced by something more pragmatic. Curiously, neither Conway has filed for divorce despite their public political warfare. Some friends believe they genuinely still love each other and have found a way to compartmentalize their political differences. Others suggest more practical considerations. A divorce would be messy, public, and potentially harmful to their children, notes a family law attorney familiar with high-profile separations. Sometimes staying together in a modified arrangement is the least painful option. Whatever the state of their marriage, both Conways have maintained relative privacy about their personal lives since stepping back from the political spotlight. Neither has directly addressed the obvious question: how do you sleep next to someone who represents everything you're fighting against? True to form, Trump couldn't let Conway's televised takedown go unanswered. Within hours, his social media accounts erupted with the typical Trumpian mixture of insults, grievances, and bizarre claims. George Conway is a deranged loser with a moon face, Trump wrote in one particularly unhinged post, seemingly unable to attack Conway's arguments and resorting instead to schoolyard taunts about his appearance. Conway did something few Trump critics have managed, observes a political media analyst. He got under Trump's skin without losing his own composure. He provoked a meltdown while remaining perfectly calm himself. In the game of political chess, that's checkmate. What makes Conway's critique particularly damaging is its timing. As Trump navigates multiple legal challenges and attempts another presidential run, Conway's framing of him as unstable, desperate, and facing inevitable legal consequences undermines the strongman image that forms the core of Trump's political appeal. Conway didn't just attack Trump, explains a political psychologist, attacked the foundational myth Trump has built around himself, the idea that he's a strategic genius playing 4D chess while everyone else plays checkers. Conway portrayed him instead as an impulsive, reactive figure driven by pathological needs rather than strategic thinking. For his part, Conway shows no signs of remorse for his public evisceration of the man his wife once served so loyally. When asked if his criticism might hurt Trump's electoral chances, Conway responded with characteristic bluntness. I believe this is what ultimately was always going to happen, the final implosion of Donald Trump. As this saga continues to unfold, one thing is certain. George Conway has cemented his place in political history as the insider critic who knew exactly where to place the knife and wasn't afraid to twist it. It's like watching a perfect political assassination, marvels a veteran Washington reporter. Conway isn't just criticizing Trump, he's systematically dismantling the psychological architecture that makes Trump who he is. For a man who built his empire on loyalty and whose worst fear is betrayal, there could be no critic more devastating than the husband of one of his most trusted advisors. George Conway doesn't just attack Trump's politics, he exposes the man behind the myth, the insecurities behind the bluster, and the desperation behind the bravado. And in Washington's never ending Game of Thrones, that's the most lethal blow of all.